Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we're doing another version of Miracle on 34th Street. This you may not know about because it was like a TV broadcast.
And for a long time you couldn't watch it. It was like they thought that it was lost. And apparently there was this guy who had to make both the companies that owned it or they didn't own it. He had to make them agree that they didn't own it, and so it became public domain. And so it's on YouTube.
Well, he got it from the Library of Congress.
He got it put into the Library of Congress too.
Well, where was it?
It was just trapped in the vault.
Oh.
Like, they weren't going to release it at all or do anything with it because, like, they don't care.
Yeah, they didn't know they cared about it. Nobody did.
Which is cool because, it's good that, we shouldn't have anything that's just trapped in a vault. No. Everything should be, like, released so that the public can enjoy it because, it was on TV back then.
Yeah,
so
just like a few years ago, they did a TV production of Grease. It was on TV and had all these actors. And
yeah, that got canceled, Safi.
No, that was actually on TV. I watched it.
No, you're not talking about what I'm talking about.
No, this was like a live production. It was just one evening, and that's what this was.
Oh, they also did a spin-off series called The Pink Ladies, and it was a spin-off of Grease, and it was a agenda show. And it not only got canceled, but it got taken off the streaming platform, and that was pretty funny.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound any good anyway.
No.
So anyway, this is another Miracle on 34th Street. We have talked about two. One was the one with Natalie Wood as a little girl. And the next one was a 1955 version. And it was fair. It wasn't
any good at all.
It wasn't as good as the first, that's for sure.
But we're doing all the versions, and this is the next one in line.
Yes, and this was done in 1959. It was a TV broadcast, like I said, and I'll just tell you some of the actors, which will make a difference. And also, they had the commercials that were shown during the show. And Betsy Palmer was selling West Clock watches and clocks, I believe, and even telling what the prices were, which was amazing.
Mrs. Voorhees.
And I thought this was helpful too as a reseller because you come across some of this stuff. Oh, sorry, and then you wonder where, something about it, when it was made, etc. So this is actually, if somebody finds a West Clocks, anything, a watch, a clock, anything, you'll know that it's from 1959. It was from that era, so you'll be able to date it. But anyway, Betsy Palmer sold the watches, there were several commercial breaks during the show, and if you recall, she played Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah, I already said that like 10 minutes ago.
You did?
I've said that 10 minutes ago.
Okay, well, I just thought she looked great, and I remember seeing her a long time ago.
Yeah, I would like to bring back this type of advertisement, because I've been taking a lot of surveys, and, they ask, that they show these commercials, and they're terrible, they're awful, they're boring and bland, and typically they're all kind of the same. And the only thing that the people who make the commercials are interested in is this commercial respectful to this gender and this sexuality and this race? And it's like, instead of that, why don't we worry about selling the fucking products? And these advertisements, this is kind of like a departure from the review, but these advertisements were really good. Because you get Mrs. Voorhees.
Really good job. They set it up.
You got Mrs. Voorhees. She talks about the products, and that's it. That's all you need. Why don't you do that?
And the price.
They don't even do that anymore. They do shit. Like, they do shit commercials. Right, Safi?
She did it. It was just, and one time they did different settings. One was outside, one was in the house with a dollhouse, because she wanted to show they had clocks for every room in the house. And then they had a Christmas tree in the background. Every set was decorated really nicely. She had a different outfit for every commercial, and it was and she just did the product, how much they cost too. Once she did the watches, and they showed all the different watches. She focused on a couple, like I think she had one on her arm, but then they showed one. Everything was set up perfectly, and I thought it was great. And I think it's good we talk about it, because it was actually part of the show, even though it's not part of Miracle on 34th Street. It's still, they were commercial breaks that were presented during this specific broadcast. So I think they're important to talk about. So, and we liked it, and she did a perfect job. So it was great. So anyway, let me tell you at least some of the actors. Ed Wynn played Santa. I thought he was a really good Santa.
I disagree.
Well, if you recall, my favorite one is the one who's on the very earliest one with Natalie Wood. He's my favorite. But I thought he did a respectable job.
Well, he was okay. He had some moments where he was kind of crazy. He was, like, overly crazy. And, I mean, remember, Safi, who is this guy?
Well, he was in Mary Poppins.
Yeah, he was the guy who was like,
He was like that.
He was like that in,
all the time.
This movie, he's kind of the same way a little bit at certain points.
He's a very likable actor. And then the guy who played Mr. Sawyer, I don't think a lot of people are familiar with him, but this is Orson Bean, and he was kind of like a comedian, but I didn't think he did that great a job.
He was like a cartoon character, and he was doing it very over the top.
Yeah, they did too much. They did a lot more detail, certain things, and this was a character. They did a lot more detail, and I didn't think it was necessary.
Well, yeah, and so I would also like to mention that, Mr. Gailey was very strange in this movie.
Well,
because he looked a lot like the actor from Dirty Harry who played the bad guy.
He might have been.
No, Safi. No.
No, okay.
No. Just no. And also, I don't know if Safi noticed this, but speaking of, like, over-the-top, like, cartoon stuff, he looked like, for some reason, like, you know how Paris Hilton's baby looks like Megamind? It's like, well, with this guy, he looks like someone came up to him and hit him over the head with a sledgehammer and, like, flattened his head. Like, his head, like, just, it looks like someone flattened it down. Or, like, when he was a baby, they, like, smushed him against the ground too much, and he's like a flat head. And I thought that was really hilarious. But he was weird, because I just kept on thinking about the actor from Dirty Harry, and so that was kind of weird. And then I thought that the mother was better than last time. But I thought the main daughter, was not as good as last time. So it was kind of a switch off for me, the casting.
Okay, well, I just want to bring up the fact that Peter Lind Hayes played Mr. Gailey, and Mary Healy played Mrs. Walker. And they were actually a married couple in real life. And they were in a lot of shows and TV productions, maybe even some movies. They were acted together. And so this was a case where they played together. And it seemed like, well, let me just go on one more thing. And Susan Gordon played Susan Walker. I didn't care for her that much either. But she was in a lot of, like, Twilight Zone episodes. And
the daughter?
Yep. A lot of different TV shows. And she retired, and she died of terrible ovarian cancer. So I just wanted to bring that
What does
up.
that have to do with anything?
Not anything, just some personal things about the people who
At least she wasn't murdered like Natalie Wood.
Right. So anyway, I thought, well, I guess you want to talk about the differences.
I want to actually get into reviewing the movie. So I think that this version is okay. It is an improvement over the second version,
Yeah,
I believe.
I agree.
A huge improvement, although it still, to me, is like something where I think, was this necessary? And I don't think that it was. You know, this reminds me a little bit of Wonka, where when you watch Wonka, at the end of it, you're like, yeah, someone could say this is okay. When really that movie
Well,
was
I
not
think this is
okay.
better than that.
But, like, you have the same question of, was it necessary to make this? No, not really.
Well, it was for NBC, and it was a TV broadcast. And I guess back then, instead of, like for years, I don't know when they started it, every year they played Wizard of Oz. That was like at Thanksgiving. And then Christmas Eve, they put on It's a Wonderful Life. And it's like every single year. So instead of having like a live broadcast like this, they just repeated these old movies. And, people watched them. And then they put insert, modern advertising for, people to get stuff at Christmas or whatever. And that was it. So this was more like, maybe this is something that they did, because I noticed they were going to do, they put at the end of it that they were going to do Philadelphia Story and some other stuff. So maybe that was just a sign of the times, something they were experimenting with on TV. So anyway,
That doesn't change the fact that it's unnecessary.
well, I
Like,
know,
was that supposed to be
but,
a defense?
That's just
Was that your
just
defense?
sign of the times. Well, didn't.
You're defending it.
Well, I don't have anything to do with it.
You're defending it like you did. You're like, back in the good old days, they used to do this thing and with movies.
Marco,
And I'm like,
Who
I've
never
cares?
even seen it before.
Really?
I've never even heard of it.
You're defending it though. You're
Well,
saying
I
it was
just-
necessary because it was the times.
I'm
I
not
just
saying
said-
it was necessary. I'm just saying
Okay.
it was something like a trend
Oh.
that they were doing. And so anyway,
Oh, it's a trend nowadays to suck the color out of movies, and yet every time it happens, you're the first one to complain about it, along with me. So it's not something that you should stop complaining about,
okay.
right?
Yeah, but it seems to me for the story that they went into a lot more detail, but then they did leave out stuff. Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't, I'll say some, maybe Marco could say some, but for example, he wasn't in any old person's home or whatever that was called. There was no such thing. And his cane was like a big giant candy cane.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I like that too. I thought it was a nice touch, really.
Another thing would be they changed the whole Christmas wish for the
Yes.
daughter.
Yep.
She wished for a tree, a real tree, and she also wished for Mr. Gailey and her mother to get together. And so I thought that was kind of cool, I guess, but it's kind of weird because, that implies that Santa could manipulate people's minds, and that means that why isn't Santa causing, like, world leaders to not want to go to war with each other if he can control people's minds like that? I think that was kind of a mistake because the implications of that are just too wild. Right, Safi?
Well, he didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, he did.
Not really.
He controlled it. That's why they implied that.
Well, I don't agree. I think he kind of, because if it wasn't for the success of the case, he wouldn't have looked so good in Mrs. Walker's eyes. And so therefore, yeah, in a certain way, indirectly, he was responsible. but they already had some kind of relationship. It just wasn't
Okay.
permanent, because they even talked about it. And he got mad because she just wouldn't commit, and they kept going on about the divorce and her divorce, and just made her never want to get married again. And they just seemed together. They seemed like they had a relationship. And
that's because they did in real life.
I know.
That's
I
what you
didn't know
said.
that until after I'd already watched it.
I didn't either. I think it was a bad decision to cast them like that, because, it already gave you the feeling they're together, and, that's not how it's supposed to be. They should have chemistry, but they shouldn't have too much chemistry to where you can tell that they're together in real life. Sometimes, too, you'll have people who are together in real life and they don't have any chemistry on screen. Or, or the relationship just isn't any good, like in those shitty Spider-Man movies nowadays, with Tom Holland and Zendaya, how they're together in real life. Well, they don't have any chemistry on screen at all. Like, she's a terrible actress, and, they have no chemistry together. And but this couple has too much chemistry, I guess, because, they were together in real life.
And we didn't know, that they were married.
No.
And it's just, I decided to look him up because I thought he might be related to Sean Patrick Hayes. I thought that might be his dad, but they're not related.
What about Rutherford B. Hayes?
And that's when I found out that they were married. And because they had about a ton of black and white photographs posted up on the site.
What about the Hayes Code?
I don't know what
the code that ruined movies for a while?
No.
The censorship code?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's just talk about another difference.
Another difference would be, and this is what I was trying to say about, like, the how he manipulated things, is that at the very end, he does this, like, manipulation where he, quote-unquote, forgot to get his cane back when he was setting up the tree for the family. And so he sneaks into the daughter's room, and he says, "I forgot my cane, so let's go get it." And then he opened up the door, and she could see Mr. Gailey and her mom getting together and snuggling with each other. And so it was kind of like an ultimate manipulation of, like, we don't have anything at the end where we see a close-up shot of the cane. That's kind of like a part of the plot where he tells her that he forgot it, and it's like an excuse for him to show her that situation.
Yeah, and that did not happen in the other one where...
And that was good.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought that was interesting and different. And another thing, when Santa goes in for his little test, and all the other ones, he goes in there and then... I don't think in the second one they even showed that. He went to that play, and then that talk, and then he bonked that guy over the head and he got committed.
They showed a really fast version of it. Like, it was like 1 or 2 questions. But in this, he does, like, all these different tests, and they're really stupid. Like, he has this, like, puzzle thing where you have, like, 2 things, or 2 rings or something, and it's a test, and if you can't get that done within 10 minutes, then you're not sane.
It was worse than that. It was a shorter time than that.
And even the psychiatrist, it was 2 minutes. And the psychiatrist, or psychologist, whatever, he could not even handle it.
No,
it was
he couldn't even do it himself.
That's why I'm saying it was really cartoony with all these tests that he was giving.
But he just kept going on, and
yeah.
The guy who played Santa got sick of it.
Yeah.
So he bonked him over the head. But it was kind of a violent thing. In fact, they didn't even show.
Yeah.
It looked like he knocked him out.
Yeah, he did. That was like, it was a cartoon. And I thought, see, that was another instance where they did not do the cane thing right, where he hits him on the head. It was so well done in the first movie.
The first movie probably the best proper way.
The second movie, it's like he's committing murder,
Right.
and then in this one, he's like knocking him out like a male Karen or something.
Yeah.
But to be fair, though, the psychologist was trying to imprison him in the room. He would not let him go.
And that was
And
wrong.
you are not allowed to do that. And so I think in real life, if he would have done that, I don't think anything would have happened, because all he would have had to have done was say that he was trying to keep him in there.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to do that. That's illegal.
That was just weird. So that's now, out of 3 movies, that was 2 out of 3 where they didn't do it right.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then we have what we talked about, the deal at the post office with the letters. Now, the first one, it's the post office people that come up with the idea, because they get that letter from Susan Walker. It's sent through the mail, and it has Kris Kringle at the certain courthouse, New York City.
Well, this one actually explains, which I really like that.
I did too.
It explains that, they can't just throw that letter away, because she wrote a legitimate address on there. And so Santa Claus, whether they believe he's there or not, they have to deliver that letter to that address, to that person.
Right.
And so I thought that was a really good explanation for the whole thing. I thought that was good. There was a couple of moments in this movie where they really did a good job at like explaining things that we had questions about.
Yeah.
Another thing would be, it implied that Santa has been on Earth for a while, because he says that his suit is 300 years old.
Right.
And he said that he has actually conversed with Sigmund Freud before. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. That was another thing. So there were a lot of little touches
Yeah.
that they added, and that I think enhanced the show.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if it had been based on a book, because it just seemed like somebody, went to the trouble, or more than one somebody, to write in these little touches and add them to the story. And they kind of like, it was a little bit more hollow in certain areas of the first movie. Like you're going to take it for granted that Mr. Gale and Mrs. Walker are going to be a husband and wife, so they can be parents to Susan, they can get that house. And to me, even though we know they're married in real life, it looked a lot more like they had a relationship. There's that. So, they go into that. The thing at the post office, they go into that.
Well, this is interesting. It says on Letterboxd that the 2 writers who wrote the original movie also wrote this.
Well, maybe they were doing things that they had wanted to do in the movie.
That's pretty interesting.
And they thought they should add.
And that they were kind of responding to what people said.
Oh.
Or asked them about. See? There had to have been a good reason, and there you go.
That's interesting. Okay, well,
I would say overall this was an okay movie. I could watch it again in the future, but
I could too.
not probably in placement of the original, because the original is still the best. Because
I think the little girl, Natalie Wood, is the best Susan, too.
Yeah, Natalie Stroganoff is the best. But this movie is the second best so far. And, who knows how the next 2 will be. I'm not excited because, for a while, Safi has been saying with all the series as we do, like for Children of the Corn and stuff like that, she's always saying, like, I hate watching these series because it's like watching the same movie over and over again. And I feel that a lot more with these movies because it literally is like the same movie over and over again with minor differences.
It's like a different interpretation almost.
Really?
Things. Well, I guess, and you know, and the thing is about Mr. Daly, I kind of like, and even though this was a couple and they're acting together, I think that's really nice. They got to do that. They allowed him to do that, but the very first person who plays Mr. Daly in the Natalie Wood version, I like him the best.
Obviously.
And I think the guy who plays in the second version, he just doesn't fit. He was a really good actor. I remember seeing him, I told you, in like old war movies, but he just, I don't know, there's just something about he doesn't seem to belong there.
To me, watching these interpretations of Miracle on 34th Street is almost like watching school plays of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching like these kind of hurried along versions where it's like, oh, look, in this movie you get to see these people play them, and oh, look, in this one there's a couple of differences here and there, and it's like it reminds me of like seeing those plays, those bad plays, or some of them were good, but a lot of bad ones. Especially which one, Safi?
I don't know. What are you talking about?
George M.
Oh.
Play. The one about fucking vaudeville. I bought tickets to that play in school, and I thought that'll be really, really good.
I've never seen it before.
And it was so awful. I just wanted to like rip out my eyeballs and eat them, and then like stab myself with a ruler or something. Like, it was so bad. I was falling asleep. I had tears of torture. Because I was so miserable watching that trash. And so like, but this movie's actually good though. But it's still like a play, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is like a play. But was it done live or?
What?
The show, was it done live?
The movie?
This Miracle on 34th Street for TV.
How would I know? I don't think so. If it was, they'd have a laugh track, because that's the point of doing it live, is so that the audience can go ah! Ah! At all the moments that they want them to, which laugh tracks are probably one of the worst inventions in television history, along with Safi's behavior. So I would give this movie, you know, when I think of this movie, I think about off-brand, or not off-brand, but like, you know, usually when you want to have homemade cookies, you want to have chocolate chip or something that you really like. But then once in a while, you get your nerve up to make like a peanut butter cookie or a snickerdoodle, and it's like, those aren't really the preferred cookies. So to me, this movie is, yeah, no, you're not sorry at all, because if you were, you would have gotten it fixed already.
I'm drinking water.
Oh really? I don't see you drinking anything. I see you caressing your face in a weird way.
My ears are cold and my neck is cold.
Well, your face is cold. But I would give this movie 5 homemade peanut butter cookies with a glass of milk. It's not the chicken dinner that the first movie was, but it's still something that you can eat. Safi?
Okay, well, I'll give it. I just had some Little Debbie chocolate hearts filled with cream. I think and cake, and they were really good. And they're little and respectable. It was a package of 2. And I had them. I thought they were really good, and I think that's what this show is. It's small, it's respectable, and it would fit at the moment. And so anyway, that's what I would rate it. That's the way I would rate it. So that's it.
I just think it's funny because I feel like no matter what Little Debbie treat I would have given you, that's what you would have given the movie.
Maybe.
Like if I had given you a strawberry
if
shortcake,
I didn't like it, I wouldn't rate
you would have been like, this movie is a strawberry shortcake, which I just had a couple of minutes ago, conveniently.
Well, we just had this. We have this every year because half of our family is Swedish, and Marco and my other boy are 38% Swedish, so they have a lot of Swede in their.
No, I'm 100% man.
Please. Anyway, they're both 38%. That's a lot.
Alpha male.
And so Swedes like to celebrate. Christmas Eve is the holiday that they celebrate. They don't
really
do the Christmas Day thing, not as like Christmas Eve. So we have all these different foods. Like for example, we had two. Actually, now it's three different types of breads. One's for Marco made the breakfast one. That's like a I call it a dessert bread, because it has nuts and sugar.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really good. You make it into a braid. It rises. There's different
Your Honor, where is the relevance here? I object.
But anyway, I could have said something about one of those.
Really?
To me, those were a lot of, the dinner was a lot of work.
Really?
And we only have it once a year.
Thank God.
Yeah. And some of it wasn't edible. For example, the herring.
Yeah, the herring came.
It didn't
and
come refrigerated. Like, we've had a lot, all along during our lives. We've ordered stuff from Gold Bellies, Swedish places at Christmas time where they would send us thing in refrigerated packaging. And when I say refrigerated packing, I'm talking about dry ice. And then a very warm container, or a certain envelopes or they would go into that were kept the cold. And this thing, when we got the herring, it was warm and it looked brown. And that is
it looked like really rotten and really bad.
And I said, no, I'm not going to touch it. And I was not told to put it in the freezer. I even asked about it. Nope, you don't put it in the freezer. I'm like, oh.
And so we just thought, well, okay, we're not going to eat that this year.
Eat it. And because I've had so many food poisoning issues, and Marco's had them, where we went to a fast food place, or like I've talked about shrimp, etc. Anyway. So if we didn't eat that.
So you're basically just saying overall that
I'd rather
you
simple
could have
movie,
okay,
or a simple production that was good, and we enjoyed it. It would be something to probably watch again. And I'm actually thankful to the guy. I don't know why I did that. I wrote down his name. He's a YouTuber, and I just want to give him credit because he went to a lot of trouble to get this and put it on YouTube.
His name was Milkman Supreme.
No, just a minute. I'm sorry. I turned off my phone because I keep getting these texts.
His name was Mr. Voorhees.
I'm still getting
advertising
texts from...
his name was Chef Gordon.
Omaha Steaks and
Chef
all
Gordon.
These places.
Yeah, Omaha Steaks, they're really funny. They sent us a coupon in the mail, and it was get $30 off. And the twist is it's for orders of a $70 to $100 or more. So
yeah, well, that's what if you want to get a good dinner, that's what it costs. But the YouTuber is Brian Lynch, and he went to an extreme amount of effort to get this version of A Miracle on that Miracle movie.
yeah, I wish that they would put effort now into getting a good Goosebumps movie or series, because kick all the people out of Hollywood who are responsible for anything Goosebumps. Or no, get back the original scripts for Better Call Saul Season 6 so that we can see what should have been. But anyway, Safi?
So that's it, everybody. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye!